Welcome to Brake Check. I'm Brian and this is the Bronco. And we've done a lot of videos on this before, but this is the first full test for a week long to tell you how it is to live with it, what's good, what's not good, and what is it really going against. Previously, if you wanted an off-roader that you take the doors off of, you ended up in a Jeep. Nothing against Jeeps, but it's a solid front axle and there are some trade-offs on the highway. If that was a problem for you, you would go to the 4Runner, which gave you independent front suspension, good steering, and overall solid build quality, but you can't take the doors off, you can't take the roof off and do the adventure image stuff that people like to do with Jeeps. This slot's right between, and it might be the sweet spot. Let's get into the interior and check that out.
Welcome to the interior portion of the all-new Bronco. Yeah, there's a lot of heritage with the Bronco, and this isn't anything like the previous Bronco. The previous Bronco was full size and was basically a truck. This is more like the 60s Bronco, but that 60s Bronco didn't exactly have a lot of creature comforts or luxury. So really, this is an all-new vehicle for Ford. Specifically, this is an Outer Banks, and this is most comparable to a Wrangler Sahara. This is a little more comfortable than a Wrangler. You're not as close to the dash, you're not as cramped, it's a little wider, you get a little more usable space. On a highway, it's just as comfortable as a 4Runner, but you get all the Jeep cool stuff like Brian talked about, and you get the roof's gone. You can't do that in the 4Runner. Speaking of this roof is, well, there's a lot of, you go on the forums, you're gonna hear a lot about it. Internet's gonna tell you that it's terrible. We're gonna tell you that, yeah, it's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. There's some wind noise, but it's better than the soft top, that's for sure. We're looking forward to seeing how that gets fixed in the future though. We'll definitely mention that. This touchscreen, this is the 12-inch touchscreen. You can get a smaller touchscreen as well, but this is the Outer Banks with the package that comes with this. And it's nice. It's the same thing that's in the F-150s. Everything just works. It's seamless, it doesn't delay, it's bright and crisp, it just works. One of the things we like about what Ford did with all the Bronco trim levels is you get different little accents. So this is blue here on this handle, it's blue on the little vent. Outer Banks, all the Outer Banks are blue. Badlands is like a yellow looking color. And then different trim levels have different little accents, which is pretty neat. Outer Banks also has these nice two-tone leather seats and carpeted floor mats. It's nice when you're driving around, very comfortable. We do have some reservations about if you're taking this off-road a lot with the doors off, how the carpet and the leather holds up in an all-weather environment, but they are comfortable. With that, let's go over to powertrain and suspension.
All right, it's time for the nuts and bolts on the brand new Bronco, and we're gonna start out with the tires. Roll it in. It rolls on 18-inch wheels with Bridgestone Dueler tires. They claim to be all-terrains, and you can see right here that they'll roll on most terrains, no problem. These are quiet. That is a benefit, and that tells you the intent of the Outer Banks is meant to compete with the Sahara more than a Rubicon. So, that out of the way, let's talk suspension. In terms of design, we have an aluminum upper control arm and lower, and a steel knuckle in the middle, and that's for strength. It does add unsprung weight, but on a vehicle like this, there are requirements for durability. And this is the kind of car that has a heavy wheel and tire, and it's probably there for a reason. I do want to talk brakes for a minute. I notice in the center of the hub, it is hub-centric, which in the world of Ford, that's not that common. In fact, it matches the center board of the wheel exactly. You're going to keep that in mind if you try to go to aftermarket wheels. That might be an issue if the hub center is too small on your aftermarket wheel. Brakes. This looks very similar to what you get on Rangers and F-150s, except this brake rotor is not huge. That means you can put a smaller wheel on it. That means you can go down to a 17, maybe even a 16. I'd have to look into that, but you're going to clear the barrel of the wheel very well. The good news is this rotor is very thick, and that's going to help dissipate rotor warping and heat absorption over time. A lot of times you get these thin and small brake rotors, and they just warp quickly on a hot summer day. Okay, let's talk some stats before we go to the rear. Approach angle is going to be 35.5 degrees, breakover of 20, and departure angle of 29.7. The ramp travel index is 500, and it goes up to 620 if you just unbolt the sway bar on your own. This does not have an electronic disconnect like the Badlands comes with. The ground clearance is 8.3 inches, which is enough, but not the best. We've seen Subarus do better than that. But keep in mind, this is the base. This is really the street version of the Bronco. It just goes up from there. And more importantly, to the teenagers out there that do silly things, the water fording depth is 33.5 inches, which is about here. With that done, let's check out the back. All right, now that we're in the back, I want to talk about the 5-link rear suspension. It is all connected to a Dana 44 with Spicer track lock differential, which means you hit a button on the dash and it locks them equally. On the Sasquatch and other trim levels, that's available in the front as well, with a Dana independent front suspension system. The important part though, mostly for ride quality on the non-adjustable dampers, is right here, a progressive rate spring. This top section right here will work at lower speeds before this big long coil kicks in. And what happens, basically the spring rate will change over compression. So as it compresses, it gets stiffer, and over low speed stuff, it undulates really well and isolates the cabin like it should. One thing you do notice out back is there is no sway bar in the rear. And that's evident on the road. This is definitely an SUV. But keep in mind what it's competing with. Just keep that in mind. That's not normal for this segment. Cars, crossovers, even trucks have sway bars now. It doesn't matter. You want the articulation, you want the suspension to travel freely. That's what this does. I'm curious to see how the aftermarket handles this. I've got a feeling we're going to see aftermarket upper and lower control arms right away. And something I do notice that is problematic on this, in all trims, Sasquatches included, is this lower trailing arm mounting point is the lowest point on the chassis. We've drug it multiple times, even in Sasquatch trim vehicles. So that's worth keeping in mind. So that's about it. Let's check out the powertrain.
Welcome to the powertrain portion. In this bad boy, we got the 2.7 liter twin turbo gas V6. Little turbo right over here. There's another one somewhere over here. Kind of hard to see, but it's that back there. They may be small, but they are mighty because they're provided by Garrett and they work well. This is good for 310 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. It's paired with a 10-speed automatic co-developed with GM, and it maybe isn't our favorite. We really like that 8-speed ZF in the Jeeps, but it's definitely serviceable. Probably the best thing about this bad boy, the pro for this, the biggest positive, is that it's port and direct injected. And why that matters is you don't have to worry about carbon buildup. Port injection added to the direct injection solves the whole carbon buildup problem. It's just gone. You no longer have to worry about that. And therein lies the hardest thing to figure out with this motor. Do I go with this that makes all this power and has the port and direct injection and the CGI block, compacted graphite iron, which you see in diesels, stuck with the automatic, or do I go with the 7-speed manual with the creeper crawler gear in the 4-cylinder and direct injection? That's a choice we have to make, and that's a choice you're going to have to make. With that, let's move on to the dynamics and see how this puppy drives.
Let me get my goat mode set up first. All right, we're in sport mode.
All right, Brian, this thing has 2 grab handles for the passenger. That's
only one for me, though.
It's time for in-car dynamics. Hit it.
Dead boost!
Oh, there's the boost!
And 60. Woo!
Wait. I thought this was an off-roader.
That was sport mode, buddy.
Okay.
Does your Jeep have sport mode? I don't think so.
Good off-road plus.
Let's be sensible and let's get back to normal mode, which is just a buggy Bronco.
Yeah.
And we're gonna pre-apologize for the audio on this, but we just felt we would have missed the essence if we left the doors and roof on.
Yeah, I mean, this is what this car is all about.
Absolutely.
All right, Brian, on the road, we've talked about suspension, we've talked about powertrain. Yep. What does all that translate to behind the wheel?
Behind the wheel, this is the biggest deal.
Yeah.
That independent front suspension is evident right away.
Yes.
You know, I turn into this turn right here, and I don't feel like the axle is shifting and the body is chasing it.
Right.
I feel like the entire front end is cohesive and dives in.
Right.
And when the left wheel hits a bump, the right wheel has no idea that happened. And that's really what an independent front suspension does.
Absolutely. And that is a game changer. We're also going to see, and we've driven this off-road, there's not necessarily a penalty there either.
No,
so you
not
get kind of the best of both worlds.
Look, the argument for a solid axle in the off-road community is articulation. And we have taken Jeeps on difficult trails.
Right.
And they've lifted tires in the same spot
right.
that IFS vehicles have lifted their tires.
All right, now we're driving at slow speed here because we don't want too much wind noise and stuff. But we've also had this thing up to speed.
Yeah.
Doors on, doors off, roof on, roof off.
Yeah, I've got some reporting on that.
Did you also, same sensations there, still stable? What's the sensation? You mentioned there's no rear anti-sway bar.
Yeah.
Could you feel all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest place where it falls down is going to be cornering, obviously.
Right.
So
it's not designed for that.
This is not designed for that. It doesn't carry speed like a hot hatch or like a normal car would.
Right.
Because you do have a lot of lean. But that's part of why it rides so well. There's a trade-off, like anything.
Good point.
But yes, what I've noticed is on the highway, what you don't have at all that Jeeps do struggle with. Granted, the current Jeep is one of the best at not struggling with this.
Oh, for a solid front axle, that's really good.
But the wander on the highway, if you feel like on a Jeep, it has a circular ball steering with a steering gearbox.
And there's this constant correction.
So in the center 20 degrees of steering, nothing happens, right? This has a rack and pinion like a traditional car has, or a current pickup truck has.
Right.
Look at your Rangers, 150s, Silverados, Rams. That's the style steering that this has.
Right.
And there's no wander in the middle. There's no wondering what's happening. And I've noticed I'm not correcting at all. In fact, I correct more in my pickup truck on the highway than this does.
Right.
And part of that is that these tires are really the highway tire. They're good at that.
Yeah, these highway tires do make it a little quieter.
Definitely.
For sure. All right. Oh, good.
But to your point, the trade-off, there's no rear sway bar, and so when you go into a turn, I find myself going quicker than I should be. And so I've had to retrain myself to bring it down a little bit.
Yeah, and again, that's not its intended purpose.
Totally.
So let's get this thing off-road a little bit, and then let's do Hipster Score.
I like it. All right, Craig, so this is a hill test I take all of our pressed vehicles that are four-wheel drive up, if they have the approach angle to get it done.
Okay.
So some crossovers don't make it.
Right.
I usually need 4 low and or a diff lock.
Okay, and you're gonna do what?
I'm gonna do 4 high, diff open.
Okay.
Let's just see what happens.
4 high, open diff. All right. And you're not gonna do crazy momentum.
No, I've got about 5 miles an hour. Let's
Okay.
keep it at 5 and let's come up with
Not
that.
crazy.
Nope. And the biggest deal is there's a step and it throws a wheel in the air usually. Ooh, there's
there.
a hop.
Oh, there you go.
And
the
there
frame.
is that trailing arm.
Yep.
That's trailing arm we keep talking about. That was 4 high, that was not 4 low, that was not diff lock. Man, when you've got good bones, Craig,
I'm telling you.
the toolbox isn't needed. With that, Hipster Score.
Hipster Score, Brian. You ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1,
6.
2.
You
I told you
did
I was gonna
me
do 2 earlier.
too.
I told you I was gonna do 2.
Why are you doing 2?
Well, because really it's the opposite of 8, which is what I really meant. 8.
Oh, you meant 8.
But I was trying to throw you off.
Okay.
Did it work?
Well, no, it just pissed me off basically. I thought you were gonna
So
say
then
8.
it worked.
Okay. Why did you give it an 8?
Okay, a Wrangler based just anywhere your starting point is like a 7.
Give or take, right?
Depending on if it's the Heritage Edition,
Green helps, things like that.
you know,
Yeah.
things like that. I think this is a little bit more than that. And what I mean by that is,
How so?
I almost think Sasquatch package keeps it from getting lower. Like Sasquatch almost hurts it because it looks too chatty,
broy,
too
too
collie,
broy, yeah.
too broy. But this doesn't have all that. But it's also a little hipper, just currently right now, than the Wrangler.
Okay.
Because it's newer on
It's
the
newer,
scene.
yeah.
But it's got all the heritage of the 60s and the other Broncos and all the off-road. This thing screams adventure. And one of the things we've talked about driving around this week, there's a sense of adventure about it.
Right.
Doors on, doors off, it doesn't matter. There's a sense of adventure when you're driving this thing. And that's fun.
It's built wild, Greg.
Yeah.
That's what it is. All right, I gave it a 6 because to me a Wrangler Rubicon is like a 7. And I do still think the Jeep has more heritage because they've been doing it continuously longer than this has
Fair
been
point.
around. Now,
Since 1941.
exactly. Before you jump into the comment section and say, oh, the Bronco is I know it has heritage, but there's been a big gap in time where Jeep never stopped, and they've built memories in that time frame.
And let's be fair, Jeep's been a Jeep since 1941.
Totally.
It's the same style
Yes.
vehicle, same
Yes.
size, same suspension. The Bronco for a long time was not the exact same car at all. It's a completely different vehicle.
Totally.
It's a full-size truck.
Absolutely.
And so it's not the same thing.
All right, well, with Fling our mud, I think we need to take it back to the shop, discuss who this thing is for, and wrap it up. All right, Craig, we've driven it. We've taken its wheels off. We've taken its
Wait.
What?
Are you thirsty?
Absolutely.
Hang on just a second.
I didn't. Oh, well, did you open that just now?
Yeah, just now.
Oh, okay.
Because this is our first take.
Absolutely. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, we've taken the roof off, doors off, wheels off. We've thoroughly inspected this, thoroughly driven it. Who is it for?
This is for the person that's struggling between a Wrangler and a 4Runner.
Yeah, okay.
They want the Wrangler because they want all the adventurability of it,
Right.
the off-roadness,
Right,
but then
the lifestyle part.
they don't want the penalty of driving it on the road. And then they want the 4Runner, but they want to be a little more capable and a little more adventurous. They want to be able to take the doors off.
Yeah,
This splits the difference.
it does. And look, if you've never done the Jeep thing with the door off, you're not quite going to understand this yet. Go try it out. This does the same feeling that a Jeep does with the door off.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to keep it pretty short and sweet. It's for the Jeep person who can't handle a solid front axle and definitely can't handle the rubber ducky situation.
Yeah, very good point.
That's the biggest problem. So when the bridge is too far of image, although this will have that problem eventually, right now it's not there yet. So if you can find one, I highly recommend it.
And that's the key point.
And that's the key point.
And lastly, with this trim level, I think it does one other trick.
Oh yeah.
And that is, it does a little bit of the Land Rover trick in that it's got a lot of luxury in here with the leather seats, dual zone climate control,
Lane
adaptive
keep.
cruise control, auto high beams, all that. And it's highly capable off-road, and that's hard to pull off in most vehicles.
Yeah, it really is. And what's an interesting sensation, doors off on the highway with lane keep going on, and your foot up on the side step. Very bizarre. Very bizarre to have radar cruise control stuff working. You're not used to that in this world.
Weird.
So
it is weird.
With all that, cheers, good review, Ford, good Bronco.
Check us out at BrakeCheckShow.com or YouTube.com/BrakeCheckShow. Brian said I could never get it, but I got it. Or Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or TikTok or WhatsApp or what's up.
You missed it again.
I missed
Have
it
a good
again?
day.
Okay, all right, whatever.